On the Tube, engineering work means there's no Circle and Hammersmith and City lines between Hammersmith and Baker Street, and there's no Circle and District lines between High Street, Kensington and Edgware Road today. And on the rails, there are lots of engineering works affecting London Overground, including a replacement bus service running between New Cross Gate, West Croydon and Crystal Palace. LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Good morning, everybody. Well, we've had the sad news overnight, not unexpected, but sad nonetheless, of the passing of Dame Tessa Jowell, and I will, later on in this hour, play a tribute to her. She will, of course, be remembered above all for the successful 2012 London Olympics, and she was very much in charge of that bid that we won. We've not had a World Cup for many years here, but we did have an Olympics, and she was a very, very big part of that. Now, overnight, tonight, the Prime Minister has written an article that appeared in the Sunday Times and has now gone out this morning on Facebook. What does the Prime Minister say? She says, "You can trust me to deliver. I will ensure we take back control of our borders. I will ensure that we take back control of our money. I will ensure that we take back control of our laws. We will leave the single market. I will safeguard the interests of the British fishing industry, and we will leave the customs union." So it's a reiteration of what she does in the big speeches like Lancaster House, and she sends out this message to 17.5 million Brexiteers and to people like me, and we say, oh, thank goodness, she's still on track. She still believes in Brexit, and then we tend to be somewhat disappointed after these big statements by her delivery. But what is interesting this time is not the fact that she said these things. What is interesting this time is she's got real problems over the customs union, not just because the House of Lords have sent this back to the House of Commons, but because the Labour Party now clearly say we should be part of a customs union. And that's a view that quite a few Tory rebels hold as well. She's in trouble. She's in really very big trouble. She could, at some point in the next week, month, lose a vote in the House of Commons over us leaving the customs union. If that happens, one of her major red lines will have been crossed. She could be in big trouble, which is why I think this article ends with, "I will need your help and support to get there. And in return, my pledge to you is simple. I will not let you down." Why would she need your support? That's us, folks. Why would she need our support and help? Well, because I think, very possibly, she faces the prospect of another general election. She's hardly going to call another referendum. I mean, that would tear her cabinet and her party to pieces. How do you feel, folks, about the prospect of another general election? Now, last time this happened, Brenda from Bristol became quite famous. This is what she said.
"You're joking. Not another one? Oh, for God's sake, I can't stand this. There's too much politics going on at the moment. Why does she need to do it?"
Well, there you are. So maybe you feel like Brenda from Bristol. Maybe you think another general election is more than you can bear. And if that's how you feel, call me on 03456 6060 973. Or maybe you think, do you know what? If she gets this one right, wins a big majority, then maybe actually we can get Brexit. The House of Lords can go to hell. We won't have Ramonas on our radios, airwaves and TV screens every day. Or maybe you feel that whatever fine word she gives in these speeches, actually, her heart's not really in it, and she's in this mess because of her own lack of leadership, in which case tweet using the hashtag Farage at LBC, at LBC, and of course, you can watch us live on Facebook, comment there too. Now, that's what I think. I think she's preparing the ground for a general election. That's my view. To find out whether I'm on the right track or maybe barking up completely the wrong tree, let's get an independent view and let's go to Professor Matthew Goodwin, Professor of Politics at the University of Kent and a Senior Fellow at Chatham House. Matthew, good morning.
Good morning.
How much trouble is the Prime Minister in?
She is in a great deal of trouble. She's got a divided cabinet. She's now faced 14 defeats in the House of Lords on Brexit-related motions, and crucially, she's got an opposition against Brexit that is mobilising to a greater extent than it has done until this point. So I think May's back really is up against the wall, and what happens over the next 2-3 weeks when those all-important defeats in the House of Lords come back to the Commons for a crunch vote. I mean, I'm not going to mince my words on this. I genuinely believe that Britain could be thrust into a constitutional crisis. I think if the motion that the Lords has passed to keep Britain in the European Economic Area, or the EEA, if that comes back to the Commons and is endorsed by MPs who basically oppose Brexit, then the people are not going to get what they asked for in the referendum vote. They're not going to get freedom from the courts. They're not going to get reform of free movement. They're not really going to get any of the key crunch changes that they needed. And I think that is going to hammer home to a large chunk of the British electorate that actually what they expressed in June 2016 has now been thwarted by an establishment elite. And that's very dangerous territory for a country to be in.
Yeah, I have to say that what I sense, Matthew, and whether I'm putting diesel in the car or buying my newspapers or whatever it is, people coming up to me now with a great sense of urgency, almost verging on anger, saying, is this actually going to happen? Difficult to know, though, isn't it, in a country like this, how that anger would manifest itself?
Well, indeed, if you are a frustrated Leave voter and you said, look, I haven't got anything I wanted so far on the transition, I haven't got anything I wanted on the budget payments, I'm still giving billions of pounds to the EU, I didn't get what I wanted on fisheries, I didn't get what I wanted on farming, I've yet to see any reform of immigration. Where are you going to go at that next election if indeed Theresa May goes down this road? Are you going to, keep your chips on the Conservative Party, knowing everything you've known until this point? Are you going to stay at home and you're going to be apathetic? And that's a real risk to the Leave vote, that actually Leavers just give up on democracy. They say, we tried this referendum, it didn't work. Or are they going to mobilise around something like, the UK Independence Party or something like that? I think one of the fascinating facts about British politics for me right now is that when you look at how volatile people are at elections, how quickly they're moving from one party to the other. There was a study last week that showed British politics has never been this volatile in its history.
I'm sure that's
More
right.
voters going from one party to another. I think that's fascinating, but also makes everything completely unpredictable.
And of course, a Conservative Party in trouble over Brexit with divisions should be manna from heaven for the Labour Party, but of course, actually, they've got a problem with their base too, haven't they?
The Brexit vote cut through the Labour electorate like a hot knife through butter. The London, university towns, metropolitan, middle-class areas held by Labour voted Remain. Kensington and Chelsea, won by Labour last year, a 65% Remain vote. But just go up to Doncaster, the northern industrial seats, parts of Wales as well. You're looking at seats that back Brexit by 70%. Interestingly, I noticed that Caroline Flint, 10 days ago, a Labour MP from the north, wrote an op-ed in one of the papers saying Labour cannot betray these voters because she is sensing what is happening north of Watford, which I think is a great deal of voter unease over where their party stands on this issue too.
I think Frank Field, too, from Birkenhead, is getting much the same feeling, that Labour's in problems as well. So put yourself, Professor Goodwin, in Theresa May's shoes. A vote happens in the House of Commons in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and given that there are now more Conservatives prepared to rebel against their own party than there are Labour MPs prepared to rebel against their own party, she loses a vote. As I see it, she then has 3 choices. 1, she resigns as Prime Minister, but who on earth would want their career to end like that? 2, she says, right, we've got to fix this once and for all. We've got to have another referendum. But I don't think the country wants that, and I think that would do just such damage to the Conservative Party as an organisation that I can't see her opting for that. Matthew, I think she's got to go for a general election in that situation.
I think it's entirely plausible that we have, what would be the 5th major election in as many years in this country, from those 2014 European elections all the way through the general elections and the referendums. I think the problem is that if you're being generous and you are taking the most generous interpretation from the opinion polls, only about 38% of the country say they're open to a second referendum. So it's incredibly, it hasn't got the majority support that you'd need. If she resigns, of course, which I think is highly possible, then it is almost guaranteed, given the Conservative membership and the Conservative electorate, that the next leader is a Leaver who is going to deliver, I think, a more meaningful Brexit than May has managed until now. If you look at those polls of the Conservative memberships, they're saying they want a Rees-Mogg, or they want somebody like that, of somebody who hasn't really minced words on the issue. But if we end up in a general election territory, I mean, you know, everything's to play for. Everything's to play for. You look at those local elections last week, the Conservatives were doing very well against Labour in pro-Leave territory, and Labour were doing very well in pro-Remain London territory. The country is split down the middle. I think, you know, there would be risks in that vote too. You know,
Yes.
that we are incredibly divided as a nation. I think she'd have to think very seriously about who runs that campaign, because their last campaign was an utter disaster. And I think she'd have to somehow come up with a message that can unify the kind of Leave element of the party and the Remain element. Otherwise, we're going to see big chunks of this Tory brand branching off and joining others.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Professor Goodwin, thank you for joining me on this Sunday morning, and please don't go too far away. I think we might need you over the course of the next few weeks. And clearly, you know, as Matthew Goodwin just said, folks, British politics and British voters now more volatile than they've been at any point in modern history. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's 10:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
The decision taken by London Mayor Sadiq Khan concerning what's called junk food advertising. The Mayor joins me now.
So what I'm announcing today are plans to ban the advertising of unhealthy foods on the public transport network.
How much will this be taken from the coffers, though, of TfL? They must obviously pay a lot of money for this advertising.
We get £20 million in revenues from food and drink. Part of that will be lost, but we think actually what will happen is advertise their healthier products on the public transport network.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With The Times, be not just informed, but well informed.
Selling your business doesn't have to be as stressful as running it. It's time to say goodbye to rolling up the shutters at 5 a.m. Say goodbye to never-ending orders, receipts, invoices and accounts, early deliveries, cleaning up and locking up late. Phew. Break free with Hilton Smythe. See what your business is worth. Pay no upfront advertising fees, there's no 12-month contracts or cancellation fees. Sell the Hilton Smythe way. Visit thehsway.co.uk.
Ah, the Caribbean. Another cruise, another me. Will I discover my adventurous side ziplining over treetops in St. Kitts? Or lift the lid on my foodie side on Antigua with a luscious lobster lunch? I could explore the delights of a spiced rum on St. Lucia. And back on board, cap it all off tonight and unleash my inner diva on the dance floor.
Cruise the Caribbean from just $1399 per person for 13 nights and explore the world in you. Now with £340 per cabin to spend on board. P&O Cruises.
This is the life.
Subject to availability based on B906A JE grade. Conditions apply. At or protected.
Namaste. Welcome to Mala, London's unique Indian dining experience. Located at the historic St Catherine's Docks, the hidden jewel of London. Marvel at the authentic antiques, murals and paintings from India's rich history. Then enjoy the finest Indian cuisine, traditionally prepared with recipes that have been handed down through the centuries. For a truly authentic taste of India, visit malarestaurant.com.
Whoever they want to be in life, give them a great start with WellKid. Carefully balanced, great-tasting vitamins and minerals for 4 to 12-year-olds, with specific nutrients such as zinc and vitamin D, which support normal immune system function. The WellKid range from Vitabiotics, from Boots, pharmacies and vitabiotics.com.
Want to progress more in your career or run your own business?
With a business degree at GSM London, you can follow your bold dreams to success.
Degrees are awarded by the University of Plymouth, and at GSM London, you can start a degree without formal qualifications on our foundation year.
So why wait till October? Start a degree this June.
Search Have Bold Dreams at GSM London now.
GSM London. Have bold dreams.
Upgrade to a Peugeot professional van with aircon, Bluetooth and rear parking sensors all fitted as standard. Plus, there's never been a better time to do it. With 0% APR available over 2 years, including nil deposit on selected models during the Peugeot May Van event. Get down to your local Peugeot dealer to find out more. Peugeot Motor Company is a credit broker and not a lender. We will introduce you to PSA Finance UK Limited. Terms, conditions and eligibility criteria apply.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Mrs. May writes on Facebook, trust me, and I'll take back control. I will deliver what you wanted in that referendum, but I'll need your help to do it. And I am speculating that we could be very much closer to a general election than anybody had previously thought. But before I get back to that, we got the news overnight that Dame Tessa Jowell had died. She was diagnosed with former brain cancer about a year ago. You might remember 2 or 3 months back she spoke in the House of Lords about NHS treatment of people with that condition, and she got a standing ovation in the House of Lords, which I'm not sure has ever happened before in the history of that place. Let's go to Theo Usherwood as he looks back at her life and career.
The International Olympic Committee has the honour of announcing that the Games of the 30th Olympiad in 2012 are awarded to the city of London.
Nothing is going to stop us savouring this moment of having won the Olympic Games for London. There's a lot of hard work ahead, but I'll tell you, we're squared up, we're ready for it, and we have prepared for this moment.
July the 6th, 2005 was undoubtedly Tessa Jowell's finest moment, as London won the right to host the Olympics. Tony Blair had trusted her to deliver the Games, and she succeeded where many others had failed. But less than 24 hours later, elation turned to horror.
We've just had a big explosion. There appears to be something ahead of the train in the track.
Breaking news we're getting from the PA Newswire that there's been reports of an explosion outside Liverpool Street Station. That, of course, in the East End of London.
Sean, can you hear me?
Hope you can hear this.
Sean?
Hello, Miss Stark?
Yeah, hi, Sean. Can you tell us where you were and what happened?
Tessa, as Minister for London, was at the centre of the government's response. A moment she shared with the former Prime Minister in an interview for LBC 10 years on.
I remember sitting in a room having a bilateral discussion with the President of China when someone came in and handed me a slip of paper which said there's been an incident in London and you're going to have to come out of the meeting quickly. Born in central London on September the 17th, 1947, Tessa initially trained as a psychiatric social worker at Goldsmiths College. It was not long, however, before she inevitably found her way into politics. First as a Labour councillor in Camden, before she was elected as MP for Dulwich and West Norwood in 1992. 5 years later, Tony Blair swept to a landslide victory. Tessa had the chance to make her mark. After ministerial stints at both health and education, she became Culture Secretary in 2001. In Cabinet, she was an arch Blairite, and sometimes even joked about the lengths to which she would go in order to protect her boss.
My mum told me that you said that you would jump under a bus for Tony Blair. Would you still jump under a bus for Tony Blair?
That was a joke. It was a joke at the time that I said it. But Tony is a very good friend of mine, and even though he's not Prime Minister, I see him. I admire him enormously.
Tessa Jowell's career was, however, not without controversy. In 2004, she was accused of getting too close to the gambling industry, as the government planned to introduce super casinos, a move that was eventually blocked. In 2007, Tony Blair stepped aside for Gordon Brown, but Tessa's political career survived as she continued to lead Labour's Olympics brief, both in government and in opposition.
But of course, it's not just a celebration for London, but a celebration for the whole of the UK. Because the Olympics will be held in the largest new urban park in Europe.
After the Olympics, Tessa retired to the backbenches. It was, of course, an open secret she was not quite ready to retire. There was one last job she had set her sights on.
I wanted to come here to tell you, just in case you didn't know, and so it's official, that I'm standing to be Labour's candidate to be the next mayor, your mayor, the next mayor of London.
By the time the contest for Labour candidate to be mayor of London came around, Jeremy Corbyn was on the verge of being elected leader. The party was shifting to the left, and Tessa was the Blairite. The result? Inevitable.
Sadiq Khan has won more than 50% of the votes cast in the round, and I'm therefore delighted to declare Sadiq Khan selected as Labour candidate for the Mayor of London. Sadiq, come and take the floor.
Tessa Jowell's style of politics may seem like an anathema to many now in Westminster. Collegiate, warm, funny, she made friends in order to fulfil her ambitions. This was never truer than when, having been diagnosed with brain cancer, she battled tirelessly to secure better treatment for fellow sufferers. A campaign she fought with typical bravery and courage to the very end.
I hope that this debate will give hope to other cancer patients like me, so that we can live well together with cancer, not just dying of it. All of us, for longer. Thank you.
Well, that package was put together by LBC's political editor Theo Usherwood, and I thought was a very fitting tribute to the life and career of Dame Tessa Jowell. Joining me for comment is Andrew Pearce, columnist, consultant editor for the Daily Mail, and of course LBC presenter on Fridays from 7 till 10. Andrew, as a person watcher in Westminster, she appears to have been a very popular figure.
Yeah, there's few like her, Nigel, actually. Everyone knows my politics, but she and I got on incredibly well. I would say she was a proper friend, a mate. I was always struck by her commitment to her cause. She was a passionate Blairite, a passionate supporter of the European Union. You and I would disagree with her on a lot of that, of course. But she did it with real conviction, and it's not an understatement to say, Nigel, she probably was the nicest politician, the nicest cabinet minister I ever met. She got on incredibly well with everybody. Relations weren't always brilliant with Gordon Brown, it has to be said, when she was in the cabinet, but to the end her friendship with Tony Blair endured. He was very close to her right to the end, as was Alistair Campbell, as was Charlie Faulkner, the former Lord Chancellor. They were devoted to her and she was devoted to them, and it was pretty clear in the last week or so things were getting pretty bad. My understanding is she went to Warwickshire, where David Mills, her husband, had a cottage where they spent much wonderful time together, and they lost her, of course, as we know, yesterday. But that's where she'd have wanted to be, in Warwickshire, with her family around her, and she died very peacefully. Thank God for that.
And Andrew, I guess the London Olympics is really going to be her lasting legacy, isn't it?
There's no doubt about it, and Blair put a lot of trust in her on that. She had to get a cross-party consensus for it. She was exactly the sort of person that could do that. She was committed to London. She'd been a London MP all her life. She'd been a Camden councillor way back in the 1970s, and she was able to bring all sorts of people into the mix, people like David Beckham, members of the royal family, because she mixed effortlessly with these people, and she would say it was her great enjoyment achievement. She was very disappointed not to become the mayoral candidate in London, but she was swept away, Nigel, by the left-wing surge for Jeremy Corbyn. I saw her on the morning in which the votes were due to be counted. She hadn't even then quite realised how bad her position was. She knew things had changed because for so long she'd been the runaway candidate to be the Mayor of London. She'd have done a great job, and it's not the time to score political points because Sadiq Khan is Sadiq Khan, but I think she would have been a fantastic Mayor of London, and quite good for London to have a woman mayor.
Do you have any idea how she felt about that change in the Labour Party?
She was deeply alarmed by it, deeply disturbed, because she thought, while she admired Jeremy Corbyn for his conviction to his politics, she saw how Jeremy Corbyn had been a consistent enemy and rebel in everything Tony Blair's Labour government had tried to do.
Hundreds of times.
Hundreds of times. I think, in fact, by the time he became Labour leader, he rebelled about 560 times. I think I once managed to point out that Jeremy Corbyn had voted against Blair more often than David Cameron, which was quite an achievement. So she was pretty upset by that, but she accepted it. She said that's politics, but she was pretty sure of this, Nigel. She said the pendulum will swing back, and we see in the papers today David Miliband, who of course she was enormously close to and wanted to win the Labour leadership over Ed Miliband, that he's making some form of comeback tomorrow on the Brexit and the European Union. But I did used to say to Tessa, I think the Corbyn revolution has got quite a long way to run yet, and she agreed with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Andrew, thank you very much indeed. That was Andrew Pearce, columnist, consultant editor for the Daily Mail, and of course LBC presenter on Friday nights from 7 till 10, saying that Dame Tessa Jowell was the nicest cabinet minister he'd ever met in his long career in Westminster. And that really is it not, a very, very strong, nice thing of Andrew to have said. OK, I'm going to get back after the break. We're going to talk about my idea that when the Prime Minister says, trust me, I'll take back control, but I'll need your help, she's actually getting us ready for a general election. There are some who think if she loses this vote on the Customs Union in the House of Commons, she'll just resign and walk away. I'm not so sure. One or two comments coming in. Keith says to me, Mrs May, asking us to trust her to deliver Brexit. I wouldn't trust Calamity Jane to deliver a pint of milk. Let's get this in perspective. If Theresa May doesn't deliver, then she is a traitor and she should go. We don't need another election. We really don't. We Brexiteers only have so much patience. If she was genuine, she'd walk away, says Kathy. Well, Kathy, I'm very frustrated by where we are with Brexit, and I have to say, my view is this is very much down to a lack of leadership on her part. I said this almost every evening last week on the show, and I was pleased to read in today's Sunday Telegraph, Simon Heffer, very strong on this point. He says the PM's lack of leadership is ruining everything. She's in a very, very tight spot. It's difficult. She faces the prospect, perhaps, of losing a major vote in the House of Commons. There may well be another general election. Oh no, not another one, I hear you say. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show exclusively on LBC. It's 10:30 and time for the news with Philip Chrysikos.
Dame Tessa Jowell is being described as an inspirational politician as friends and colleagues share their tributes following her death. The former Labour cabinet minister died peacefully at home at the age of 70 after being diagnosed with a brain tumour last year. Former Prime Minister Tony Blair says she was an inspiration to work with, while Labour MP Frank Field has given LBC his memory of Dame Tessa.
There's one very single memory about how warm-hearted she always was, and that when she was speaking to you, she made you feel that you were the centre of the world. It's a very, very sad day.
Two other headlines in brief this half hour. Counter-terror police in France are questioning the parents of a 21-year-old Chechen-born man who killed one person and injured four others in a knife attack in Paris. And Theresa May is promising people she won't let them down in delivering Brexit, but admits there will be compromises. LBC weather. Rain across eastern areas before it eases by the afternoon. Chilly elsewhere, ahead of sunshine on the way, a high of 16 degrees.
LBC travel on the North Circular westbound in Finchley. A lane stays closed between the A1 at Henley's Corner and Golders Green Road because of roadworks that continue. In Canning Town, the traffic lights on working on Barking Road at the A13 Newham Way near the Canning Town flyover. In Staines, Thames Street is closed in both directions because of an accident between South Street and Clarence Street. On the rails, Southern have delays between Balham and Victoria because of emergency engineering works. And on the Tube, engineering work means there's no Circle and Hammersmith and City lines between Hammersmith and Baker Street, and there's no Circle and District line between High Street, Kensington and Edgware Road today. LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff.
This is LBC.
Dacia, a car company unlike others. I like that. Europe's fastest selling automotive brand. I like it. The Dacia Sandero, a What Car Award winner 6 straight years. Like that too. And it's yours from just $6,995. Very likeable. Read the glowing reviews at dacia.co.uk from our lovely customers. What's not to like? Seems more and more people are warming to the Dacia way. You'll like it too. At participating dealers only.
Clear a house, clear an office, clear a little bit, or clear loads of it. With Clearabee, getting rid of rubbish is quick, easy and affordable. Choose our man and van rubbish removal service and we'll come and clear almost any rubbish from almost anywhere. Because whatever you want rid of, there's a Clearabee man in a Clearabee van who can do it professionally and legally. Book now at clearabee.co.uk.
Clear rubbish easily. Clearabee.
This week at Lidl, explore a taste of the Far East. As a starter, try assorted spring rolls, $1.99. As a main, chow mein for just 99p. And for dessert, coconut ice cream, only $2.19. Visit Lidl this week to see the full Taste of Asia range. Subject to availability, NI may vary, selected stores while stocks last.
Buying or selling a business is a big step, let's face it. So you don't need it to be a big, stressful, headache-inducing, want-to-pull-your-hair-out step. You want a helpful team, a straightforward process, and people that know what they're doing, which perfectly describes Hilton Smythe. If you're buying, get your dream business anywhere across the UK. And if you're selling, there's loads of reasons you should do it the Hilton Smythe way. See why? Click thehsway.co.uk.
The best place for sleepyheads is in their bridge bed in bed.
At Bridge Bedding, we have hundreds of beds and mattresses in stock from the biggest brands in the UK. We'll beat any price on a like-for-like basis and we'll deliver for free. So before you buy your next new bed, visit a Bridge Bedding Centre, Rectory Groveley-on-Sea, Upminster Road, Hornchurch, or online at bridgebedding.com.
The best place for sleepyheads is in a Bridge Bedding bed.
Oak Furnitureland's up to 50% off Super Deals Must End Sunday. Freshen up your home with stylish solid hardwood collections. Hurry, Super Deals Must End Sunday.
There's so much to like about Dacia Retail Group. Where do we begin? Well, we could start by saying the Dacia Sandero is a What Car Award winner for the 6th year in a row. We like that. And at Dacia Retail Group, it's yours from just $6,995. We like that too. Oh, and you'll really like this. Dacia is the fastest selling automotive brand in Europe. Find your nearest dealer at daciaretail.co.uk. I think you'll like it.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
The Prime Minister's in big trouble. The House of Lords 14 times have defeated government legislation on leaving the European Union. What will the House of Commons do? The government beginning to fear they may well lose a vote over the customs union. And I think in this article published by the Prime Minister this morning, when she says, trust me, I'll take back control, but I'll need your help to do it, I think she's getting us ready for another general election. And I'm asking you, would you support that? I get on Twitter from one person, no, and from another, yes. I get by text from Tony, May will ruin the Tories. Well, the problem, of course, is the Tory party is very, very split on Brexit. That's the truth. Let's go to Chris in Colchester. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, Nigel.
So,
I think you could be right, and I think if the establishment is going to call another election, I think the main purpose will be to remove Jeremy Corbyn as the leader of the Labour Party, like they tried desperately to do during the council elections, but it didn't quite go their way. I think if there is another election, I don't think May thinks she's going to win a majority. I think there'll pretty much be a stalemate, and then there'll be calls saying, look, the Corbyn train stopped, blah, 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 we need to get rid of him. Because the most dangerous thing to the Blairites and the people who want to thwart this referendum is Jeremy Corbyn. It's not Theresa May, because they know he will not back down.
Well, you say that, Chris. You say that, Chris, but it's a funny one, isn't it? Because Jeremy Corbyn, the man, has been as opposed to all the European treaties over a long parliamentary career as I've been. But as leader of the Labour Party, he's in charge of a group of people in the House of Commons who are mostly fanatically pro-European Union. So, Chris, the Labour Party position has softened a lot on this, hasn't it? I mean, they're now saying, and it's pretty much official policy, that they want us to remain part of a customs union. In fact, Emily Thornberry last week said the customs union.
Yeah, I mean, the trouble is he's got so many backstabbers and people in his party. He's trying to play all sides a bit. But, I mean, if he really wanted to back down, he could easily just completely kowtow to them, and he would have all of them on his side. He'd have everyone on his side then, but he will not do that. And I think that does show backbone. But I still can't understand why Theresa May is the Prime Minister. I mean, she was a horrific Home Secretary. If I was flipping burgers at McDonald's and gave 500 people food poisoning and then made Health and Safety Manager, there would be something quite wrong about it.
Yes, I don't think her record as Home Secretary was particularly distinguished either. Chris, if there was a snap general election, do you think it would result in a hung Parliament once again?
Yeah, I think people know that as well. I really think it would be pretty much a stalemate, maybe a couple of seats here and there.
OK, all right, Chris, thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Cliff, who's calling from Hayes. Good morning, Cliff.
Morning, Nigel.
So, have I got this right, Cliff, or not?
For once, Nigel, I usually agree with you on everything, but I don't think so this time.
OK.
And the reasoning being, there's one thing that the Tories prize above all else, and that's power. The country doesn't matter, nothing matters, only power. Mm-hmm. If they go to the country now, as your last caller just said, it's likely to be a hung Parliament. The only reason they called the election last time, which I actually saw coming, was because they had a 20-point lead in the polls. They'd just taken Copeland, and they had 12 or 13 MPs facing investigation over their electoral wins.
They certainly did, yeah. Yeah,
including in your seat.
I know, but there's going to be well, that actually, Cliff, I can say that that particular seat is going to be going to trial tomorrow. But I can't say any more than that. But Cliff, yeah, I mean, there were lots of reasons why they called it last time. It didn't work, and without the DUP, she wouldn't be there at all, frankly. But Cliff, yeah, they want to keep power. But what if she was to lose a vote on the customs union and then say, I accept the will of the House of Commons, we are actually going to stay part of the customs union? I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg and the 60 members of the European Research Group and millions of Conservative voters would say, if that's the case, we simply can't support you.
Yeah, but in which point I think they'd pull May down rather than go to the country.
Right, so you think a leadership election's more likely?
Very much so, yeah.
Okay.
They'll get rid of her first to protect their seats and keep themselves in power until the actual outlook is a lot more favourable for them getting an overall majority. Because there's no way they get an overall majority at the moment. It would, I agree with your last caller, it would be a hung parliament, and they do not want that at any cost.
Yeah, I mean, they could be thinking that the results that they saw in those local elections perhaps indicate that Labour's Corbyn's bubble has burst to a certain amount, and that they position themselves as the party for Brexit, for leaving the single market, for leaving the customs union, for being tough on immigration. I mean, hey, Cliff, we hear this from the lots of elections. They don't often deliver. And maybe they think by going to the country with that ticket, that in fact that would expose Corbyn's Labour Party, particularly on immigration, on which they're incredibly weak. That's the calculation, Cliff, isn't it?
It is, and also they'll be looking at it as rather the devil you know, because a lot of people don't trust Jeremy Corbyn on anything. I mean, he's flip-flopped. The policies they're putting forward, like last week, where he was saying that all the Royal Navy ships will be built in Britain, but they want to keep us in the customs union. You can't do that. If you're in the customs union, you obey the rules.
Yes.
It's got to go out to tender.
Yes, I heard...
All that kind of stuff gets exposed.
I heard Liam Fox speaking about this over the weekend, saying as a former defence secretary, the fact those ships are being built in South Korea is because of EU procurement rules. Yet another reason, Cliff, for us to break free, in my view. Thank you. Well, Cliff thinks I'm wrong. He thinks that if this vote is lost, May is got rid of. He may well be right. Peter is calling from West Hampstead. Good morning, Peter.
Hello, Nigel. I think it is immensely dishonest to imagine that you can turn a general election into a sort of a one-issue deal. You can't. I mean, a general election is about health, schools, defence, transport. Should we tax and spend or provide austerity? You can't. General election is a format which you cannot force into a one-issue.
It's interesting, Peter. Yeah, I mean, isn't it, if we think back to the election last year in June, she started off, if you remember, saying this is the Brexit means Brexit general election, and then within a couple of weeks she was dragged into debating absolutely everything else.
You absolutely have to. And the other thing to remember is that Brexit does not split down party lines, and they just can't handle this. They've got no mechanism, they've got no logic, they've got no vocabulary. I mean, if you take the Liberal Democrats, for instance, 2 years ago they had a major poll of their members, and they're refusing to provide the answers, even to their own members. And so the Liberal Democrats are split down the middle, and they're trying to cover this up. The party system doesn't allow for...
Well, it's the electoral system, Peter, isn't it? If we didn't have first past the post, British politics would be in a completely different shape. But we do have first past the post. Maybe, I mean, Peter, do you think, looking, a year or two down the road, do you ever think it's possible there could be a major realignment of these two big parties?
I think there could be a formation of a middle party, taking the sensible people from the Labour and the sensible people from the Tories. But if one does the sums, if there was proportional representation under a good system, not the Mickey Mouse nonsense that was proposed in 2011.
Oh, I know.
Corbyn would be in power now.
That's if people voted the same way, and of course people do vote. I mean, take the UKIP vote, Peter. When I was leader, when it was a European election and contested on PR, a lot more people were prepared to vote UKIP than they were under first past the post. So having a different system can shift the vote.
Oh, it can. I mean, it's absolutely stunning what the alterations to the last 3 or 4 general elections would have been if, as you say, people don't alter their voting decision. I mean, we would have had Jeremy Corbyn, and we would have had the Liberal Democrats in an awkward position, but they would probably have sided with him.
Yeah.
I mean, even the year before, when you got that massive roll of support, you would have had, I think, 85 MPs.
Yes.
And there is a possibility that UKIP might have split.
Well, I think the truth, Peter, the truth is that we got 4 million votes under the first past the post system. I think under PR, given the levels of support UKIP had, we might have got 6 million votes. We might have won 120, 130 seats. But hey, that's looking back. Peter, thank you very much indeed for your call. On Facebook, Tanis says 17.4 million is behind Brexit. How much more help does May need? Well, but again, you see, if you listen to this show regularly, Tanis, I keep saying, if you go out there and take the country with you, you'll find the parliamentary numbers improve. Steve says May's lost the plot. Rob says Corbyn has no power over Labour. And Rob, I think when it comes to European policy, he doesn't have much. He did put his foot down and you know, sack a front bencher, and he does not want Labour to be campaigning for a second referendum. But when it comes to the customs union and even on the single market, he's given away a lot of ground. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It is now 10:45.
This is LBC.
All next week, Sheila Fogarty will be carrying out a special report looking at a career in teaching. Whether you have recently graduated or are looking for a change in career, teaching is a great way to make your degree, skills and knowledge really count. Throughout the week, Sheila will be talking to a range of guests about the differences great teachers can make and how rewarding a career in teaching can be. That's all next week with Sheila Fogarty from 1 p.m. with Get Into Teaching and LBC.
An amazing kitchen, an amazing bathroom, an amazing hallway. At Amazing Tiles, our range of porcelain, ceramic and bespoke tiles can make any home amazing. Right now, buy 5 metres or more of plain tiles and get 1/3 off the retail price. Visit our showroom and warehouse at Park Royal Road, London, or call 0208 83 84 900. Make your home amazing at amazingtiles.com.
Often, the post is just takeaway leaflets and bills and people trying to sell you stuff you don't need. But now and again, the post contains something life-changing, like the envelope you've been sent for Christian Aid Week. Because by using it to donate just a £5, you could help change the lives of people around the world. People like Marceline, whose home was destroyed by a hurricane. So please keep an eye on your doormat this Christian Aid Week, because together we're stronger than the storms.
The Mail on Sunday is Britain's best read Sunday paper, and this weekend, to celebrate Harry and Meghan's forthcoming wedding, we're giving you the chance to win a spectacular £40,000 wedding with a reception for 80 guests at the superb Fulham Palace. It even includes a stunning Charlie Breer designer wedding dress, award-winning photography and flowers, plus the ultimate luxury Caribbean honeymoon at Sandals Royal Barbados. Make someone in your family's dream come true. Win a wedding fit for a princess. Only in this weekend's Mail on Sunday.
If you're a property developer, you'll know that running a business is hard enough without having to worry about VAT, stamp duty, land tax, CIS and legal agreements. Fortunately, the specialist property accountants at Barnes Rofe can take that burden off you. Speak with Barnes Rofe to find out how their specialist property accountants could save you valuable time and money. Barnes Rofe. Clever accountants for property businesses. Visit barnesrofe.com/radio.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Mrs May writes this morning, trust me and I'll take back control, but I'll need your help to do it. And I think she's getting us ready for a general election. And I'm asking you whether you support that. But before we go back to that, overnight, a knife-wielding assailant killed 1 person and injured 4 others in a lively neighbourhood near Paris's famed opera. He was killed by the police. Let's find out more about this incident by going to Peter Allen, LBC's Paris correspondent. Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. Yes, another horrendous terrorist attack. They've become all too familiar, really, in the city since early 2015. In this case, the attacker has now been named. I can tell you, Nigel, his name is Kazmat Asinov. He was born in Chechnya, and he arrived in the country, that is France, in the early 2000s, during that period where those terrible wars going on in Chechnya. But he was a political refugee, now aged, he was 21 until he was shot dead yesterday. But also, I can tell you that he was on a watch list. He was considered a threat to national security. The RRG, the security agents over here, had flagged him up, and yet he was given the freedom to spend 9 minutes stabbing people in central Paris on a Saturday night.
So it took 9 minutes for the French police...
9 minutes before they got there, yes. The first call was at 8:47, and it was soon after 9 o'clock that the police finally arrived. So yes, he had a full 9 minutes.
I'm amazed.
People couldn't identify him to begin with. They thought he might be in a restaurant. They thought he might be out on the street. And he was only actually caught because they stopped him for routine control. So by this time, it got rid of his knife and was trying to get away.
I mean, I'm amazed because actually, whenever I go to Paris or even Brussels these days, I see soldiers and policemen carrying guns virtually everywhere.
They're all over the place, but in the end, it has to be rather tokenistic. France is a very, very, very big country. Paris is a very big capital city.
Yeah.
And even if you have 4 soldiers with their guns out in one street, 2 streets away, 3 streets away, there'll be no soldiers at all. So this is the point. It can only be tokenistic, that kind of security.
Do you anticipate any political sort of backwash from this, given that this 21-year-old was already on a watch list?
Well, there will be. There'll be the usual. Marine Le Pen is already up in arms about the whole thing. Clearly, there'll be a lot of talk about what can be done to monitor people on these watch lists. But of course, we've got about 40,000 on these watch lists.
Wow.
Again, it takes about 20 officers or whatever to follow somebody day in, day out. You can't have everybody being followed. It's one of these situations that's very, very difficult to deal with.
Yep, and all too familiar. Peter Allen, thank you. That was LBC's Paris correspondent reporting on that knife attack that took place in Paris's famed opera area yesterday. Back to Theresa May, the problem she faces and the fact that I think she's getting us ready for a general election. Some think that's wrong. Some think if she loses the vote on the customs union, that will actually trigger a leadership election within the Conservative Party. What is for certain is the earthquake of Brexit. The aftershocks of that are far, far from over. What's the point of another election, I get on Twitter? There would have to be another leader, and that isn't on the cards. Mrs May will not deliver. Well, a lot of Brexiteers feel Mrs May will not deliver, despite her fine words this morning. But not delivering is actually not an option, because her own supporters and about 60 of her own MPs would not put up with it. On Twitter, I get, why not another referendum on the final deal? She can't keep having elections till she gets the result she wants, can she? Well, we'll see. Yes, given the right opportunity and backing, I get. So some of you think, actually, it might be a good idea. I don't know. What does Matthew in Heathrow think? Good morning, Matthew.
Morning, Nigel. Basically, I'm sure Theresa May is not going to risk another general election, but as the cabinet is split, I think she's going to have possibly a referendum on the hard or the soft Brexit, what they are discussing once they get the 2 separate deals worked out with Europe.
So you think she'd give us a referendum where we're asked, do we support this model or that model, yeah?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I mean, I remain effectively believing, but I think the model where basically we're going to have some sort of partnership with the customs union, is the solution.
Well, there are lots of people, Matthew, with very different ideas to that, but some that support that view. But Matthew, I mean, if she's seen to call a second referendum, isn't that also going to cause huge internal divisions? Isn't the only thing that can unite her party beating Labour in a general election?
Well, no. I mean, I think she's not going to risk that. I mean, basically, until they sort out the deal with the EU, and I think the cabinet is split, it looks like they're going to be looking at 2 separate deals, and then once they get these 2 separate hard or soft Brexit sorted, they will then put it to the people, because they want to stay in power, and they're not going to risk the election until they have to.
OK, Matthew, thank you. Matthew thinks the second referendum is far more likely. Amanda says on Twitter, I don't trust her at all about anything. Totally untrustworthy. Amanda, how can you say that when the Prime Minister writes, I will ensure we take back control of our borders. I will ensure we take back control of our money. I will ensure we take back control of our laws. We will leave the single market. We will leave the customs union. We will safeguard the interests of the British fishing industry. Amanda, the trouble is, she keeps on saying this about once every 6 months and then conceding. What does Dave in Hammersmith make of all of this?
Hi. I think she has a three-pronged attack here.
Okay.
First of all, she's got to deal with the 20 amendments that the unelected House of Lords have bolted on to this legislation. And she needs to send a message to them that they will lose their power if they don't behave. So basically she's saying, I'm prepared to go to the country on this. And she can, and so basically it's the first salvo, if you like, towards them to say, look, I'm prepared to do this. My feeling is that the second part of that would be that that would be the time when she did a handover to Boris Johnson, and that's the other threat. So what she can say to to those same people is, you know, these are my two options. I'll do that. The third thing she can do is that she can say, look, last time we really messed up on the elderly. We were telling them they're going to have to lose their houses for their care. We haven't got that anymore. It's very different from a local election. I think we'd swing it with enough of a majority to not have to depend on the DUP. And I think that's really the way she's going. I think it's really mostly about threatening against these traitors in her own party who aren't, you know, voting with the country. Because to be honest,
see them as traitors, Dave, do you?
I think, look, I didn't vote for this, but it's democracy. And that's the thing you have to believe in. You have to believe that if that's what the people voted, to say they're ignorant or they didn't know this or they didn't know that...
It's horrible, isn't it?
It is, and I saw what one of the Lords said, I don't remember this customs union being mentioned. It came to every door in the country.
Yeah.
It was on that little white piece of paper. So,
yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's not my thing, but we can't keep having referendums on this, that, and the other. We have to say we had the referendum. It was told that it would be a once-in-a-generation referendum. That, you know, there were lies on both sides, or exaggerations, or whatever you want to call them. But at the end of the day, this is about her saying, I'm prepared to go to the country on it. And that's the other thing she might do. She might say, you know what, I'm going to put this back in your hands. I'm going for a Brexit, a hard Brexit. You can't trust Corbyn for anything. You never have been able to. He's a turncoat of his own party, a stooge for the Russians, and an apologist at the very best.
Well, she would say all of those things. But, Dave, the idea that she could just hand over to Boris Johnson is something I'm going to challenge. I'm not so sure Boris is that popular amongst the Parliamentary Conservative Party these days.
It's a scare tactic. It's a scare tactic.
Just purely a scare tactic. Right, fine. No, OK. If it's not me, it's him. He'd be even worse. Get it, Dave? I thank you. Let's get comment from Anthony in Staines. Good morning, Anthony.
Good morning, Nigel. Well, I think if she goes for it, she can certainly win a general election, because look at the polls. She's holding up despite all the problems, the horrendous problems she's faced.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the Times last week, 43% Labour, what was it, 38% or something?
Yep.
But I think there's two things she needs to do before then, and one of them is to get rid of Davis. I think he's dreadfully weak as a Brexit secretary. There's no energy there whatsoever.
He does look a bit beaten up sometimes, doesn't he?
Yes, I mean, she needs to get someone like you in there. Now, that's an idea, isn't it?
Oh, I'd love to do it, Anthony, but I'm afraid she won't even lower herself to speak to me. I mean, I'm not part of the party. I'm not a fully paid up member of the tribe, and that, I'm afraid, is how politics works, Anthony. Isn't David Davis isn't his problem that he's not allowed to do what he wants to do? He's doing what the cabinet tells him.
Well, yes, because she's got Philip Hammond there, she's got the likes of Nicky Morgan, but I think she really needs to go on the attack. What the country will respect is a really firm approach to this. And
well, I couldn't agree more. Anthony, I've got to go. Time's moving on. I agree with Anthony. She would not be in this mess if, apart from making the odd very good speech, if she was actually delivering on some of it and showing leadership, she wouldn't be where she is, in my view. OK, moving on. Donald Trump's foreign policy is in the spotlight after a series of interventions and withdrawals. We've had Syrian missile attacks, the Iran nuclear deal's gone, we've got the upcoming North Korea summit talks, and last night the Donald thanked North Korea for saying it would dismantle dismantle its nuclear test site. I'm asking, have you been impressed by Trump's foreign policy so far? And if you think no, he's just got lucky, then call me on 0345 6060 973. Maybe you think, yep, he's gone way beyond what I thought he'd do, and you can text to 84850. Or maybe you think his undiplomatic style has produced surprising results, in which case tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. We'll continue talking about Dame Tessa Jowell, who died overnight, and watch us on Facebook. We're live from London
on
next.
Your radio, on your phone, and here.
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, the family of former Labour Cabinet Minister Dame Tessa Jowell says she has died peacefully at home at the age of 70. Alistair Campbell, former Director of Communications for Tony Blair, has told LBC his memory of Dame Tessa.
Politically, she was a very big figure. Rightly, Seb Coe's saying today that if it hadn't been for Tessa, we wouldn't have got the Olympic Games and there wouldn't have been such a success. Sure Start was driven by Tessa's absolute belief in social justice and kids being given the right start in life. She changed the approach of government and I think of the whole NHS to how we think about health. But I think actually it's her kindness that people remember more than anything. She's an incredibly warm, compassionate, empathetic person.
Dame Tessa was diagnosed with a brain tumour in May of last year. The Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt has told LBC her campaigning on brain cancer research was a lasting tribute to a lifetime of public service.
You know, she could have hung her hat up as one of the most popular parliamentarians in the country, but no. She decided to carry on campaigning right to the end because she rightly said this is a rare cancer that doesn't get enough attention, and I want to make sure that other people who get this get a better deal than I've got. Came to see me, came to see Theresa May, drew our attention to the fact that we really don't spend enough research money on brain cancer, which we're putting right, and she just didn't stop, and I think she was just an extraordinary, magical person.
The Prime Minister, Theresa May, says the dignity and courage with which Dame Tessa Jowell confronted her illness was humbling and inspirational. LBC's political editor, Theo Usherwood, rounds up the other tributes being paid to Dame Tessa Jowell.
She was a collegiate politician. She had friends right across the political divide, and that's what made her so effective when it came to delivering things like the Olympic Games. And of course, her personality, her characteristics are epitomised by the tributes that have been coming in this morning. Tony Blair, of course, she was Culture Secretary within Mr Blair's cabinet, said there was no one like Tessa, no one better. And then we've got Lord Coe, who of course, the peer who worked on delivering the Olympic Games, said nobody deserves greater credit for the 2012 Olympics than Tessa Jowell. And Harriet Harman, former interim leader of the Labour Party and close friend of Tessa Jowell, said she was a politician who didn't follow the political rules but followed her personal instincts, and that's what made her so personal.
Tributes to Dame Tessa Jowell, who's died at the age of 70. In other headlines this hour, reports say a man suspected of killing one person and injuring 4 others in a knife attack in Paris was on an anti-terror watch list. The attacker was shot dead by police. The parents of the 21-year-old who was born in the Russian Republic of Chechnya are being questioned by authorities. A serial killer known as the Muswell Hill murderer has died in prison at the age of 72. It's thought Dennis Nielsen killed at least 15 men in North London at his home in the 1970s and 80s. The Prime Minister is promising she won't let people down over Brexit, but says there will be compromises. Theresa May has written in the Sunday Times as cabinet divisions continue over her proposals for customs arrangements with the European Union. LBC weather, rain across eastern areas before it eases by the afternoon. Chilly elsewhere ahead of sunshine later, a high of 16 degrees. From Global's newsroom, for LBC, I'm Philip Chrysikos.
This is the sound of a broken boiler.
Oh.
And having to fork out for a new one.
Oh.
Then finding out you can get interest-free credit until the 31st of May.
Oh.
Not blowing your savings on a new boiler feels good. We're with you. Search British Gas New Boiler. Credit subject to status, conditions apply.
LBC travel in Forest Hill on the South Circular, Stansted Road. The traffic lights aren't working at Brockley Rise. It's because of a burst water main, so Brockley Rise is also closed northbound. On the North Circular westbound in Finchley, a lane stays closed between the A1 at Henley's Corner and Golders Green Road. That's because of roadworks that continue there. In Canning Town, the traffic lights aren't working on Barking Road at the A13 Newham Way near the Canning Town flyover. In Staines, Thames Street is closed in both directions because of an accident between South Street and Clarence Street. And on the rail, Southern have delays between Balham and Victoria because of emergency engineering works. LBC Travel, I'm Dave Garth.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
When Donald Trump got elected, there was this feeling that America was going to withdraw from the rest of the world. The America First message meant they weren't going to engage with anybody. They were going to withdraw from everything, and America would become like Noddy Land. Actually, the opposite's happened. Because in many ways, I think we're talking more about what Trump has done in terms of foreign policy than we're talking about what he's done in terms of domestic policy. Now, his style is, well, how can I put it? Unconventional. Not exactly what one would expect normally in terms of international diplomacy, and one thinks of the tweets about Rocket Man in North Korea and all the rest of it. But the one thing for certain is he's been pretty active. Just think about it. There have been a couple of missile strikes in Syria. There's the cancellation of the Iran nuclear deal, which of course he had promised to do in the run-up to the election. And in Singapore next month, he's going to meet Kim Jong-un, and they're going to talk about whether they can denuclearise the Korean peninsula. So and overnight, that was added to by the news that North Korea say they're going to dismantle their nuclear test site. So on the face of it, I think he's exceeded expectations, and I'm going to ask you this morning, do you think that Trump has been impressive on the foreign stage? If you think, no, it's just down to luck, then call me on 0345 6060 973. Maybe you agree with me and say he's gone way beyond what anyone thought possible, in which case text to 84850. Maybe like me, you think it's time that he got a nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize, or maybe you don't. Let me know on Twitter by using the hashtag Farage and LBC @LBC, and we'll talk more in this hour about Dame Tessa Jowell. But for now, let's get an opinion. Let's go to Stephen Erlanger, Chief Diplomatic Correspondent for the New York Times, and not Stephen, as a newspaper, Trump's biggest cheerleaders.
No, we're trying to be as objective as possible. As you know, sometimes that's hard, but we do our best.
Well, then be objective, Stephen. Tell me. I mean, am I right?
Analytical. Analytical is the word.
Analytical.
Yeah,
no, that's fine.
right.
But it is true, Stephen, isn't it, that when he took over, people thought that in terms of diplomacy, that America was going to withdraw from the world stage. That has not been the case, has it?
It's not been the case, but I'm not sure that's what we expected. When he said America first, it wasn't America by itself. It was American interests first. In other words, he would reinterpret America's relations with the rest of the world primarily from America's interests and not necessarily multilateral interests or Europe's interests or anyone else's interests. In other words, it was time, he felt, for America to stop being a wimp in the world and be taken advantage of by its allies and assert its national interests. I think that's actually what we expected, and that's pretty much what we're getting. Don't you think?
Well, I think he's... no, I think what's happened with North Korea actually has surprised everybody, to be honest with you. I
agree with that.
When it comes to the Iran nuclear deal, he'd said from the start that it was a dumb deal, that it wasn't working, and the fact that he's withdrawn from it, I think actually it would have been a betrayal of his voting base if he hadn't. But it's on North Korea that I'm genuinely interested. I mean, is he now getting some credit at the New York Times and elsewhere?
He is. No, without question. The thing about North Korea is his blustery negotiating style works sometimes, particularly when you can scare people. And what he did in two ways, it wasn't just Kim that he scared, he also scared Xi Jinping and the Chinese. And what has worked best for Trump, I think, is that he's gotten China to pay real attention to North Korea and to try to rein it in. The Chinese sanctions, which are much intensified under Trump pressure, have, I think, been what has turned Kim around. And also, let's be honest, Kim has nuclear weapons and he has missiles. It's not like Iran, which was developing them. He already has them. So the big challenge for Trump, and we'll see what happens, I mean, maybe he will succeed, I hope he does, is to get North Korea to agree to denuclearize, which is the Trump desiderata, but with enough inspection and assurance that Kim doesn't do what North Korea has done twice before, which is promise to denuclearize and then not do it.
How would you analyse the prospect, after Singapore, of Western money actually being invested and going into North Korea?
I think it will be, not surprisingly, a stage-by-stage thing. It'll get complicated. It won't be very quick. I mean, I think what they need to do is lay out, and I think Trump understands this, and John Bolton certainly understands this, they need to lay out a stage-by-stage. You do this, and we'll do this. You do this, and we'll do this, because there's a lot to denuclearize. There's a lot to dismantle. Now, his testing area, as you say, he's making a big show of getting rid of, but it's collapsed. So it's kind of like, showing you the ruins of a building and saying, see, this building is no longer in use, so congratulate me.
Yeah. It was kind of a little sweetener overnight, I guess.
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
But I mean, Kim has, I think, played it very well. I think Trump so far played it very well. I mean, it is dangerous. North Korea's been dangerous. If Trump can, make it undangerous, I think it's wonderful. I mean, what I would expect to see, in a way, we always thought a peace treaty at long last between the two Koreas would come at the end of a long process, and it feels like maybe that will come at the beginning. I mean, if Trump can announce, agreement in principle on a peace treaty between North and South, with some security guarantees and serious high-level talks on denuclearization stage by stage in return for economic help and so on, I think that would be a tremendous success.
No, it certainly would. And Stephen, help me with the most difficult question on foreign policy, Russia and Vladimir Putin. Because, I mean, he goes through the election, he says, look, I want to meet Putin, I want to talk to Putin, I want to have a better understanding between us, and he did say it may not work, but actually there appears to be a fair degree of hysteria towards Putin and Russia in Washington, D.C. these days.
Well, there is. I mean, there's no question there's a kind of Russophobia. I mean, it's not like Putin's behaved very well. But, I mean, what Trump, I think, came in wanting to do, and I had no problem with this in principle, was for the first time, let's say, since 1917, and Western support for the whites, the counter-revolutionaries, the United States was going to say, look, we don't care what you do at home, Mr. Putin. You want to screw your journalists, you want to put people in jail, you want to be an oligarch, fine. We don't care. It's not our interest. What interests us is, what do you want and what do we want? What are your interests? What are our interests? Now, in principle, that was fine. The problem is, the Mueller investigation, the alleged collusion with the Russians for the campaign has poisoned the atmosphere so much that I think it's just been impossible for Trump to do it. And also, frankly, some Russian activities in Syria, etc., have not made the White House very happy either. But
so that just
I had no problem with the
that relationship goes nowhere, Stephen, in your view? Or?
Well, I don't think it does. I know he wants to meet him, and he may invite him to the White House or go to the Kremlin, but the problem is right now the relationship is so poisoned, and Russia is, I don't know whether you agree, but, you see it acting in lots of ways to undermine the EU, to create fissures with Hungary, Poland, Czech, Slovaks. It's interfered to some degree rather clumsily in elections in France and Germany. It is manipulating fissures that are already there, and it is a revisionist power. It hates what the Cold War the end of the Cold War brought to Russia, it wants to reverse it. And that is creating tension.
I don't think there's any prospect of very good relations developing with Putin's Russia, with America, Europe, or anybody soon. And finally, Stephen, let me ask you straight. Has Trump, as a president, exceeded your very low expectations on the New York Times in terms of his foreign policy?
Well, I would speak for the New York Times, but I mean, I think, I'll say why I'm ambivalent. One, on Korea, I think let's see what happens. It's fine. Let's hope it works. It would be a big help. On the Middle East, I don't think, his plans going anywhere. I think he sided too heavily with the Sunnis, with the Saudis, with Sisi in Egypt, with Bibi Netanyahu. The U.S. is no longer considered a kind of even-handed broker in the Middle East. And what worries me is, his disgust for NATO, his disgust for the European Union, which I know you may share, Nigel, at least to some degree.
He and I may just have discussed this once or twice, Stephen.
Of course, this is right. And also his undermining of the WTO, I don't think works very well. I mean, the World Trade Organization, that has to work by rules. I mean, it's okay. The Europeans also don't like what China's doing, but to do it unilaterally will punish the Europeans when, in fact, the U.S. and the Europeans could get together through the WTO to renegotiate deals. So I'm ambivalent, but yes, on certain things he has absolutely exceeded my newspaper's expectations.
Thank you. Stephen Oninger, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And that was the chief diplomatic correspondent from the New York Times saying that Donald Trump has exceeded expectations. And I never thought I'd hear that from the New York Times, who have been very, very strongly opposed to Trump in virtually every single way. I think he's surprising people. Do you agree with me? If you do, call 0345 6060 973. If you don't, if actually you think he's blundering and making too many mistakes, then text to 84850. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusive in LBC. It's 11:15.
This is LBC.
The new Jaguar E-Pace is here. Experience Jaguar performance and compact SUV practicality from just
£299 a month? I'm not carrying on till you take this seriously.
But it is $299 a month.
Oh, really?
The new Jaguar E-Pace, now available from an unbelievable £299 a month on Jaguar Personal Contract Hire. Jaguar, the art of performance.
Initial rental £3,587, 36-month term, subject to status, 10,000 miles per annum, mileage and return conditions apply. Offer ends 30th of June. Available at participating retailers only. Visit jaguar.co.uk.
Whoever they want to be in life, give them a great start with WellKid. Carefully balanced, great-tasting vitamins and minerals for 4 to 12-year-olds, with specific nutrients such as zinc and vitamin D, which support normal immune system function. The WellKid range from Vitabiotics, from Boots, pharmacies and Vitabiotics.com.
Getting busy with your borders? Try our resilient Imara Busy Lizzies. They're new and exclusive to B&Q and just £10 for 4 packs. Don't forget the compost and hose kit. So for low prices on beautiful plants, you can do it when you B&Q it. Busy Lizzie's £3.12 per pack of 9.
Winston Wolfe here. Now listen up. It's a beautiful morning. You wake up, look outside, and see your precious car gleaming in the sun. And then you see one nasty dent on the side. Some bozo's bad driving has ruined your pink paint job. You're furious. That's when you thank your lucky stars you're with Direct Line. Unlike with other insurers, you won't lose your no-claim discount when you claim it's not your fault.
Hit while parked? Your no-claim discount is safe. Can your motor insurance do that? With comprehensive cover as standard. Excesses apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
There are many ways to see Tenerife. Its historic towns, architecture, volcanoes, or just mile on mile of beautiful beaches. But there's only one way to fly.
Fly British Airways from Gatwick to Tenerife from £299 per person for return flights and 7 nights accommodation. Availability and dates are extremely limited. ATOL protected. Conditions and booking fee may apply. For full details, cba.com/Gatwick.
The Mail on Sunday is Britain's best-read Sunday paper, and this weekend, to celebrate Harry and Meghan's forthcoming wedding, we're giving you the chance to win a spectacular £40,000 wedding with a reception for 80 guests at the superb Fulham Palace. It even includes a stunning Charlie Breer designer wedding dress, award-winning photography and flowers, plus the ultimate luxury Caribbean honeymoon at Sandals Royal Barbados. Make someone in your family's dream come true. Win a wedding fit for a princess. Only in this weekend's Mail on Sunday.
Oak Furnitureland's up to 50% off Super Deals Must End Sunday. Freshen up your home with stylish solid hardwood collections. Hurry, Super Deals Must End Sunday.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Well, Stephen Erlanger, the chief diplomatic correspondent of the New York Times, when discussing Trump's foreign policy, made mention of the views of John Bolton. And Bolton, of course, has just become the national security advisor to Trump in Washington, D.C. And if you want to hear a bit more from John Bolton, the man himself, then check out my podcast, Farage Against the Machine, available on iTunes and on Android devices, and you can get more information at lbc.co.uk. But there is an interview there between myself and John Bolton when he lays out his world view. And it was interesting, wasn't it, to get somebody from the New York Times saying, yes, actually Trump has exceeded expectations. And the news overnight that came from North Korea, that they were actually going to be dismantling, their nuclear site. Some have said, well, actually, the thing was out of date and possibly rather damaged anyway. But either way, as we head towards this big historic meeting in Singapore next month, both sides are showing each other quite a lot of love. I don't know what's going to come out of it, but I do think the whole thing is quite remarkable. Let's go to Mark in Camden. Mark, has Trump exceeded your expectations or not?
Yes, he has exceeded them, Nigel, but I'd just like to say that I voted for you in 2015, and you were the best Prime Minister since Margaret Thatcher that sadly this country didn't get.
Oh, that's very sweet of you, Mark. Very sweet of you, but I did my best. I did all I could, but I do think in some ways I was able to precipitate this big earthquake in British politics, which isn't over yet. But what I couldn't do, Mark, was to break the first past the post electoral system. It is so difficult unless you're a party with a regional base, or a party with all working class support or all middle class support. The system is virtually unbreakable, and I find that frustrating, Mark. I also think it leads to total negativity in British politics. My rosette's red, therefore I'm good, you're blue and you're bad, and vice versa. And I do feel our electoral system gives us very, very negative politics.
I agree, Nigel. It needs to be changed. So, sorry I went off topic there. But
you did, and you dragged me off on a tangent because you struck at a subject close to my heart. Now, when Donald Trump came to power, what was your view of him on the world stage?
I respect the man greatly. If I was an American, I'd be a Republican, and I would have voted for him. I like the no-nonsense approach, but moreover, I'm impressed with the results. It's hard to say what I really expected of him, during the campaign itself. I didn't know sufficiently enough about him, to be honest, to really have formed a greatly accurate opinion. But I think Obama was all talk and no action. We had a lot of sort of ineffective and wishy-washy policies that didn't particularly yield anything at all. And I'm going along with the narrative that Trump's achieved more, in his time in office now for 18 months than Obama has in 8 years.
Well, that's certainly what I buy into, Mark. Absolutely. Mark, thank you for that. I'm going to move on to Rose, who's calling from Chiswick. Good morning, Rose.
Good morning.
So how do you see Trump's achievements on foreign policy?
Well, I'd like to speak about the Middle East particularly.
Yep.
And I think it's an utter disgrace that he is opening his American embassy in Jerusalem. Under Security Resolution 181 of 1947, it said that Jerusalem should be established as a corpus separatum.
Yes.
Under UK Security Resolution 478, it affirmed that the enactment of the 1980 Jerusalem law was a violation of international law. So therefore, he is violating international law. And the other thing that I would like to mention, by trying to get Assad out, does he really, really want ISIS to be the leaders of Syria? Because there is a power vacuum there, and his policies are incredibly dangerous.
Rose, I have to say, I think that we in the West are very, very conflicted over Assad. You know, in 2013, the British government lost a vote in the House of Commons, thank goodness in my view, where we were actually going to arm the rebels, and we may well, Rose, have turned out arming people who were ISIS. So I think we are very, very confused.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're very confused and conflicted on that.
I do not, under any circumstances, want those butchers to be, leading Syria. I don't want them.
No, and you see Assad as the lesser of two evils, yeah?
Yeah, Assad is a disgusting dictator. He's an evil man, but he is not ISIS.
Yeah, no, I do understand that completely. On the point about the US Embassy in Jerusalem, and
Yes.
Ivanka Trump and her husband Jared Kushner will be there
Yes.
for the opening this week, I would say this to you, Rose. You know, President George W. Bush promised in the run-up to the referendum that he would move the American embassy to Jerusalem and never did so. Bill Clinton promised he would move the embassy to Jerusalem and never did so. Donald Trump promised he would move the embassy to Jerusalem, and in true Donald style, he's actually doing it. So I think in terms of, as you say, international law, if you clearly say what you're going to do, you put it to the electorate and you do it, I don't think that of itself is illegitimate, but it might be seen as provocative.
May I say one other thing, which disgusts me?
Mm-hmm.
Not one. I listen to LBC every day, all day, for hours and hours and hours.
Right.
Not once has the unarmed conflict in Gaza been mentioned by LBC, and the lives of the Palestinians being lost, and they are unarmed. And I think it is absolutely disgusting that you guys haven't mentioned it once. Not once. 5,500 people have been wounded, and over 75 have been killed with tear gas, white phosphorus.
I'm very surprised.
And not once,
well,
LBC mentioned it.
Rose, I am surprised. Given the breadth of debate that happens on this radio station, I'm surprised to hear you say that, and I would be also surprised if it hadn't been. But look, there are lots and lots of topics for us to discuss. I tell you what, Rose, let's try a different tack with you on Trump. Do you think he's performed impressively with regards relations with North Korea and Kim Jong-un?
I think he has, but I don't think it's entirely him. I don't think it's entirely his doing. I think there's a lot of work being done in the background, and I think that he's taking all the praise for it. And I do not, under any circumstances, believe that he should be nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, he's done more than Obama ever did, Rose.
Well, that's very true. But in order to get a Nobel Peace Prize, he needs to look at all his other foreign policy, which at the moment is disgusting.
All right, Rose from Chiswick, some very strong views from West London this morning there. Let's go up to the Lake District, to Frederick. Good morning.
Hi, Nigel. I just want to discuss maybe a strategy that Trump's actually employing, which is called the madman theory.
Yeah, go on.
This is a political theory that's actually quite commonly associated with Richard Nixon's foreign policy in Vietnam.
Yep.
So it was his attempt to make himself look very volatile and irrational, to make those leaders think that they shouldn't provoke the United States and should actually take a different tactic. So when it came to Obama, his foreign policy was to just think, it's just not worth the hassle with North Korea, and we should just leave them alone, and it will be dealt with in the past, and nothing will change. However, with Trump, he's completely changed that foreign policy. And now it seems like he's actually employing that madman theory to make them seem like actually the US is a bit more crazy than this time, and it could actually respond. And so North Korea is actually starting to look, they just want to survive in the end.
Frederick, I had Stephen Erlanger on the show earlier, chief diplomatic correspondent of the New York Times, and he said that North Korea were a bit scared of Trump. So that kind of goes along with what you're saying, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. So Trump's now employing this theory, which actually might be a bit less effective than Nixon's, because Nixon had tried to give the impression that he'd been pushed too far, and he would return to his sense if the Soviets and the North Vietnamese actually gave in. But whereas if the North Korean government might actually not think that, it's unlikely to believe that, because that Trump would do the same, because, as at this point, Trump's threats are, standing operating procedure for him, and it's not actually a temporary emotional reaction, and it's all just words at this point. However, it does just seem that North Korea at this point just wants to survive, and therefore Trump has provoked them into making a decision that actually, they're never going to go with war to the US, because they would have been wiped out, especially seeing as China would then have lost they'd not given them any support, and so because China,
so it's working, Frederick. It is working, isn't it? The strategy is working.
Yeah, it is working. However, Trump's irrational reactions, to North Korea, especially on Twitter, have now provoked other countries into seeking to make this a bit less hostile, with China and South Korea being the key parts. However, Trump was the one that provoked it. However, it's very, you can't say this is a very wise theory to go through.
Frederick, let me ask you straight. Has Trump exceeded your expectations in terms of his achievements on foreign policy?
No, he's met them, actually.
He met them. All right. Fine. Frederick, thank you very much indeed. And Frederick pointing out the madman theory, one employed by Richard Nixon, that if you threaten something and people think you're crazy enough actually to do it, well, do you know, whatever reason he's got the North Koreans to the negotiating table, I don't care what they are. I just think it's a very, very good thing. Nigel, I'm not surprised by the Donald. He's destined to succeed. His personality may be flawed, but oh, what a character, says Hannah. Well, I think, like him or dislike him, we'd all agree on one thing. Oh, what a character. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 11:30, and time for the news with Philip Chrysikos.
Tony Blair is leading tributes to Dame Tessa Jowell, who's died at the age of 70. The former Olympics minister and Minister for London was diagnosed with brain cancer in May of last year. Mr Blair says Dame Tessa was an inspiration to work with. Theresa May describes her as inspirational. The Prime Minister is telling Brexit supporters and her divided cabinet, "You can trust me to deliver." But writing in the Sunday Times, Theresa May warns there will be compromises, pledging, "I will not let you down." The parents of a man who stabbed to death a person and injured 4 others in Paris last night are being questioned by French police. Reports say the 21-year-old, who was born in Chechnya but had French nationality, was on an anti-terror watch list. LBC weather. Rain across eastern areas before it eases by the afternoon. Chilly elsewhere ahead of sunshine later, a high of 16 degrees.
LBC travel in Kidbrooke on the A2 Rochester Way, Relief Road southbound. There's a lane blocked because a car's broken down near Kidbrooke Station. In Forest Hill on the South Circular Stansted Road, the traffic lights aren't working at Brockley Rise. It's because of repairs to a burst water main, so Brockley Rise is also closed northbound. On the North Circular westbound in Finchley, a lane stays closed between the A1 at Henley's Corner and Golders Green Road because of roadworks. In Staines, Thames Street is closed in both directions. That's because of an accident. And on the rails, Southern have delays between Balham and Victoria because of emergency engineering works, and there are also delays on Southern at Tulse Hill because of a signalling problem. LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff.
This is LBC.
LBC with the Open University have been looking into adult learning and how everyone can learn while still earning, gain new qualifications, and can help bring life and social change.
I'm convinced that a lot of people can do things, but they just don't realise they can do it. But once you start doing it and you start to succeed, it just snowballs, and that then permeates into every part of your life.
To find out more about the Open University, go to lbc.co.uk.
For a short-term loan, choose Fornovo.com. You'll be glad we're quick. A decision could take less than a minute. You'll be pleased with the rate. We've got one of the best APRs around at representative 448% APR. And you'll be happy with the process. Just text HAPPY to 66777. Fornovo.com. Your loan, your call.
Fornovo.com. Text HAPPY to 66777.
Late repayment can cause you serious money problems. For help, go to moneyadviceservice.org.uk.
Oak Furnitureland's up to 50% off super deals must end Sunday. Freshen up your home with stylish solid hardwood collections. Hurry, super deals must end Sunday.
All right, guys, another day done. And you're probably looking forward to putting your feet up. So I'll cut to the chase. Have a think about what you drink at home through the week. The couple in front of the footy drinks. The It's Nearly the Weekend drinks. Cutting out just a few of those drinks could help you keep that belly fat in check. And would you really miss them? Ultimately, though, it's up to you. Have a little less. Feel a lot better. Download the Drinkaware app to get started.
Thomas Edison's light bulb moment didn't happen overnight. Over 2 years, more than 3,000 designs were tested, an obsession that earned Edison a place in the history books. At Darwood & Tanner, we believe obsession is a good thing. It drives us to find a dental implant solution for every patient, even in the most challenging cases. Darwood & Tanner, your smile is our healthy obsession. Visit darwoodandtanner.co.uk.
My house, my office, they're a mess. You need London Storage Vaults. Their self-storage units are in an underground vault near Oxford Circus, so they're completely safe. They're also climate controlled, so they're ideal for anything from paperwork to fine wines. Sounds great. They'll collect your stuff for free if you're in zones 1 and 2. There's 24/7 access and all from just £10 a week.
London Storage Vaults, the future of self-storage. Visit londonstoragevaults.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Landlords, Direct Line guarantees to beat other insurers' renewal premiums for the same cover. Can your insurance do that? Switch to Direct Line Landlord. New customers only. Qualifying criteria apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
The world is relentlessly discussing Donald Trump's foreign policy decisions. And one of the criticisms over the last week or two is he's working really hard to come to a nuclear deal with North Korea, and yet he's just scrapped a nuclear deal with Iran. And one or two people asking, what's the big picture strategy? What's the thinking behind this? Actually, I think Trump looks at things deal on deal. He looks at things in terms of their individual cases. I think with Iran, and of course the European Union are horrified, because they thought Obama was absolutely great. But you know, I'm going to argue Obama got Iran very badly wrong. You know, when this deal was struck, Obama actually said, you know, he hoped that they could continue to have new conversations with Iran and to incentivize them to behave differently in the region, to be less aggressive, less hostile, more cooperative in resolving issues like Syria or what's happening in Iraq, or to stop them encouraging the Houthis in Yemen. That was the optimism that Obama had with the Iran deal. And in fact, by freeing up $150 billion of Iranian assets that had been seized, all that actually happened was Iran behaved worse right across the region. And they want to spread that evil doctrine of their appalling regime that is running that country. And I think what Trump really wants, above all, with Iran, is he would like the European Union, that includes us, of course, he would like us to change our policy. He would like to see regime change in Iran. Now, you could argue that regime change in Iraq has led to years of misery. You could argue that regime change in Libya has actually been a disaster. But I have to say, for my money, I would love to see regime change in Iran. It's a country with amazing potential. I think he's right on that. But tell me I'm wrong. You can do it very easily. You just call 0345 6060 973, and provided the language is clean, you can come on LBC and say whatever you want. And I like this tweet I've got from Luke. Trump is doing what he said he would do, and people are shocked and surprised. Why? It's why he got elected in the first place. Luke, I agree with that. You know, Trump is moving the Israeli embassy to Jerusalem. Shock, horror. This is dreadful. He promised the people he'd do it. Trump is cancelling the Iran nuclear deal. Shock, horror. But again, he promised people he'd do it. And I think, actually, standing up at elections and telling him what you're going to do and then doing it does somewhat restore faith in voting and in the democratic process, whether you agree with what's being done or not. Sylvia is calling from Putney. Good morning, Sylvia.
Hello, Nigel.
So, how's he doing?
Well, I love Trump.
Oh, do you? And do you tell your friends that, Sylvia?
Well, yes, a lot of us, we all think he's great. I listen to this, not your programme, but the whole of the LBC, day in and day out. And the men that ring in, they absolutely hate him. I think it's jealousy, personally.
Jealousy? So men are jealous of Trump, do you think?
I think so.
Oh.
Because he's done things that they secretly would like to do.
What, because he's got lots of money and very pretty wife and...
Lots of women and...
Lots of women? What are you saying about the American president? Well, I tell you what, Sylvia, we'll park that to one side. But okay, so were you a fan of Trump all the way through?
Well, I didn't give it much thought. But looking at the whole thing, he doesn't indulge in the politics of appeasement, which gets you nowhere, because nobody is offended, but nothing gets done. That's what Mrs May's doing. And I've noticed that his detractors are becoming rather quiet, although I think secretly they're hoping he's going to fail. And I'm looking forward to seeing him shaking hands with Kim Jong-un.
Yes, absolutely.
On the steps of somewhere or other, maybe the White House or somewhere like that. And I think in time, further down the line, we're going to see him shaking hands with the leader of Iran. I think something will turn up there. And
well, that would be very surprising. I
know.
But then, actually, almost everything he does is surprising. So I think the difference is here that the Iranian regime actually want to spread their religious doctrine across the whole of the rest of that region, and I think that makes meeting very difficult. But Sylvia, thank you for your call, and Sylvia there from Putney, a big Trump supporter, and there are quite a lot of you out there that are big Trump supporters. Alex is calling from Finchley. Good morning, Alex.
Hi, Nigel. Of all the things that I disagree with you about the most, this is one of them.
Okay.
One of the biggest, because Trump is actually causing total instability throughout the region. And he's making the Iranian people suffer more than most. And I've got a suspicion that this isn't about regime change or anything like that. It's about anything for Trump is how to make money, and he's making enough money out of all this to last him and his the cohorts years and years.
Alex, I don't think making money is top of Mr. Trump's agenda right at this moment in time. If he wanted to make money, he'd have carried on doing what has been just about the most successful reality TV show the world's ever seen. He would have made a lot more money carrying on doing that than being US president, wouldn't he?
Well, I mean, he's not going to make money directly. It's indirect money. I mean, look at the price of oil. Since it's come into power, it's gone up billions.
Well, oil is... last time I looked, Alex, oil was about $77 a barrel, 3.5-year highs. That certainly has happened. But do you... I mean, Alex, tell me, do you think that the Iran nuclear deal was working?
Look, it's not that it was working. It was a deal that was done. Now...
Well, deals can be changed, Alex.
The regime I'm not a fan of the regime. The problem with the West is that they're duplicitous. And what they do is that, for example, all the children of all these rulers and ayatollahs are living freely in the UK and the US.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is studying nuclear physics in the US. So when you tell me that, the US...
Is that really true?
Yes, it is.
Goodness me. Okay.
Yeah, so it's rubbish. I mean, absolute nonsense. The people that are suffering are the Iranian people. And what's happened is that the cost of goods in Iran has trebled in the past 6 months.
But Alex, isn't the truth of it, the people of Iran have been suffering now for 39 years under this extremist ideology that dominates that regime?
Yeah, but at the same time, don't let the West support them. Stop the West from supporting them. So if they continue
all right, Alex, let me try this on you. Let me try this on you. All right. Trump's pressure on China meant that the sanctions China was putting on North Korea were perhaps for the first time real sanctions. North Korea was seriously hurting. That, above all, is the reason that Kim Jong-un is coming to the table and making conciliatory noises, okay? If that same principle is applied to Iran, and, remember last December, last January, we did see protests and, an upwelling of a movement that wanted to get rid of that regime. If those same tough pressures are applied to Iran, I do accept that in the short term, that makes the lives of average Iranians even worse than it is already. But if that was to bring about, a toppling of that regime, wouldn't that ultimately be the best thing for 80 million Iranian people?
I know, Nigel, but who do you want to replace them at the moment? There is no, like Iraq. You see, the problem with
anyone that's not, Alex, anybody that is not an extreme Islamic fundamentalist is my answer.
No, but John Bolton is a supporter of MKD or whatever they're called.
Yeah,
and they are the most fundamentalist people. Their people come and burn themselves in Knightsbridge, for God's sake.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot...
No easy answers, no. Alex, would you credit Trump with anything that he's got right on foreign policy?
No, because in the end, what's happened... I'm in the currency market myself.
Yep.
So I am seeing the total devastation of the US dollar. People are turning away from the US dollar.
I know, Alex, I'm sorry. There is not a total devastation of the US dollar, is there?
Long term, there will be.
Hang on a second. I'm not having that, all right? You can predict the stock markets will crash, you can predict whatever you like, but your statement about the dollar actually, to be honest with you, Alex, Trump would like the dollar to be weaker than it is. That would suit his book economically.
Look, Nigel, the problem with Trump's policies and the US policy under Obama was that they've turned away people from using the US dollar. That's the main issue, that people are not willing to trade in US dollar because they fall under ludicrous US laws. So therefore, they are willing to trade in any other currency.
Yeah, I do accept that in terms of reserve currencies, other currencies have gained ground against the dollar over the course of time, but maybe with the growth of the East, that was inevitable. Alex, I'm going to have to love you and leave you. Thank you very much. Alex there doesn't want to credit McDonald with anything, but Dave from Croydon says, I agree with everything on Trump. He's got the guts to call it like it is. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's now 11:45.
Coming up at 12 on LBC, Majid Nawaz.
Britain has been transformed into a country where the self-made can succeed, with almost all of the richest people having built their own fortunes. Is capitalism working?
Majid Nawaz on LBC.
My house, my office, they're a mess. You need London storage vaults. Their self-storage units are in an underground vault near Oxford Circus, so they're completely safe. They're also climate controlled, so they're ideal for anything from paperwork to fine wines. Sounds great. They'll collect your stuff for free if you're in zones 1 and 2. There's 24/7 access and all from just £10 a week.
London Storage Vaults, the future of self-storage. Visit londonstoragevaults.com. Terms and conditions apply.
This is the sound of someone with a million things to do, waiting in. Your time is precious. We're with you. So our engineers call ahead to let you know when they're on their way. When you're with British Gas, we're with you. 95% of engineers call ahead.
Here's another true story from Aldermartin, Baines and Cuthbert. When fire tore through a residential London development in 2015, the local health and safety executive were quickly on the scene. Fortunately, ABC had all the right health and safety paperwork and certificates, and to the great relief of the building's owners, were able to prove there was no fault. No fuss, no hassle. For block management, ABC Estates will give your story an ending that'll make you as happy as Larry. Find out more at abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
Life is about sharing those magical moments, and food shouldn't be any different. For over 35 years, Marouche has been perfecting this experience with their delicious food, warm hospitality, and live entertainment. Authentic Lebanese cuisine made the traditional way. Marouche, your family restaurant. Book now at marouche.com.
The Mail on Sunday is Britain's best read Sunday paper, and this weekend, to celebrate Harry and Meghan's forthcoming wedding, we're giving you the chance to win a spectacular £40,000 wedding with a reception for 80 guests at the superb Fulham Palace. It even includes a stunning Charlie Breer designer wedding dress, award-winning photography and flowers, plus the ultimate luxury Caribbean honeymoon at Sandals Royal Barbados. Make someone in your family's dream come true. Win a wedding fit for a princess. Only in this weekend's Mail on Sunday.
leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
Well, we had the sad, unexpected but sad news overnight of the death of Dame Tessa Jowell. We've been talking a bit about her and her achievements with the London Olympics in particular, but trying to find out a little bit more about her as a person. And to help me with that is Scarlett Maguire, former communications advisor to the Labour Party and somebody who knew Tessa for 25 years. Good morning, Scarlett.
Good morning.
Tell us about, I mean, all we ever see in politics, really, we see the politician battling against the other side, or sometimes even battling against their own side. Tell us about Tessa Jowell, the person, please.
Well, I mean, the thing about Tessa, and it's within her politics and without it, is, I mean, she wanted to make Britain a better place. That's why she went into politics. Before that, she was a social worker. And actually, the whole way that she dealt with her death was about saying, you know, more people should be given proper treatment for cancer. So in fact, what you saw as the public person was also the very private person, was that she did think a lot about how to do better for other people.
And she very much seemed, in terms of philosophy, to be, I mean, very close to Tony Blair in many ways, leading up to that amazing victory in 1997.
Yeah, I mean, she was very close to Tony Blair. Before 97, he made her shadow women's minister and said, you know, Tessa, you've got to win women over for me. I think she told a lot of us that she would go under a bus for Tony Blair. She really, I mean, she believed in his politics, but also she really, really respected him as a person. And he paid her back. I mean, he certainly has been wonderful about the cancer. He obviously made her Secretary of State for Culture, and she did the Olympics with him. I think when we're talking about her as a person, also what's really important, I mean, she was totally in love with her husband, but also, I mean, her two children, who I knew because our children all went to the same school, the local comprehensive. I mean, she absolutely idolised her children, and she would have put her children before any job, I can tell you that.
I wonder how she's managed this one achievement, Scarlett. You know, Tony Blair, we just talked about at length, and Blair, of course, there are people that respect Blair enormously, but there are quite a lot of people who dislike Blair intensely. And you could apply the same to David Cameron and people who've been at cabinet level and in the front line of politics. They have detractors for years and years and years to come. You know, they just do. It kind of goes with the territory. And yet, Tessa Jowell doesn't seem to have attracted that.
Well, I mean, I think that one of the things that, although she was absolutely Labour to the core, let's get this straight, but actually she could make friends on the other side. I mean, Tim Shipman, who's now on the Sunday Times, was on the Mail, said, you know, she was one of those politicians who didn't hate the other side. And certainly when she was made a dame, and I went to her sort of celebration thing in the House of Lords, there were an awful lot of Conservatives there, and there were a lot of you know, Conservative journalists. So she stretched out to other people to try and get. I mean, what Tessa really, really wanted was to get things done, and particularly in the last, you know, from the Olympics, once she stood down as. Even as culture minister, she was reaching out to people like Seb Coe, who was next Conservative minister, to try and get things moving. And what Tessa thought was, you know, it's all about the end. It's all about making a difference. It's all about getting there.
Well, I must say, I think that comment, that she didn't hate the other side, I think we need a lot more of that in our politics in this country and perhaps across many other parts of the Western world. Scarlett Maguire, thank you very much for joining us and giving us that personal insight into who the real Tessa Jowell was. Thank you. And it is remarkable. You know, normally when you've been at a top level in politics, there's a group of people out there who will hate you forever, and Tessa Jowell managed to avoid that. Perhaps the Olympics had a bit to do with it, because not only was it amazing that we won the bid to host the Olympics, but they were a massive success as well. Back to Trump and his foreign policy, and Mac asks me on Twitter, what I don't understand is why Trump pulls out of Iran because he hates the deal, yet seems to be offering North Korea a similar opportunity. Maybe it's because US businesses can prosper. Mac, I'll tell you what it is, matey. In the case of North Korea, he genuinely thought that Kim Jong-un posed a threat to the world. He absolutely, in his soul, believed that, and will do anything he can to try and denuclearise them. In the case of Iran, I think what he sees is a regime that actually is very, very weak. They're hanging on, but as we saw from the protests in December and January, you know, things are not very stable there. And he sees them as being weak. He sees them as being without weapons that can pose a genuine threat to, I mean, that's not to say there won't be confrontation with Israel, but, you know, he doesn't see them as posing a threat to world peace, and I think he hopes he can bring the regime down, and I think that's a reasonable insight into how he sees both of these things. Phil says the US have the right to put their embassy where they want, with reference to Jerusalem. Bitar is joining me from Finsbury Park. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel Farage.
Good morning. So, how is Trump doing? Give him marks out of 10.
Very well. Just want to thank him. He made the right decision. I'm calling you on behalf of all the Iranians. We thank him. He's done the right decision to pull his nuclear atomic. How we can trust a regime, dictator regime, which is killing its own people, to not come and kill us. Obama give Iran so much money, and they all spend it on a Hamas and a terrorist forces and a Middle East.
Okay.
And killing its own people. How we can trust its
he's done the right thing, scrapping that Iran nuclear deal. Yeah.
Right thing. And we thank him.
Okay. Thank you. So it's not a good line, Bitar. It's a shame, actually. Thank you. Bitar was there speaking on behalf of all Iranian people. She's not actually the spokesman for all Iranian people. But it has been interesting, actually, over the course of the last week, just looking at callers and texters and tweeters, there are quite a lot of, I'm going to sort of say this, from the sample I've seen, there are a lot of Iranians living in the UK and the US who think Trump has done the right thing, even though in the short term, it will make life for ordinary Iranians even more difficult than it already is. Vanessa is calling from High Wycombe. Good morning, Vanessa.
Good morning, Nigel. Nice to speak to you. I've never spoken to you before.
Well, I'm very pleased to speak to you. And tell me, is Trump doing better than people thought he would?
You know what, Nigel, I was going to start off by saying I wasn't a Trump lover, but I'm one of those dying breeds that respects democracy. So, you know, that America elected him, so that's fine by me. When he first announced this, I sort of thought, what an idiot. That's going to cause all sorts of trouble. And now I've been listening to LBC all week as your previous caller, and every Iranian person that I've heard calling.
It's funny, I just said that. Yeah.
Exactly what I was called in to say.
Yeah, and we had phone calls.
That has said he's done it wrong.
We had phone calls, Vanessa, from America onto my midweek show from Iranians, again saying much the same thing. And I wonder whether Boris Johnson, and sadly we're not, Vanessa, pursuing a very independent foreign policy here. We're doing it, in conjunction with the EU. I wonder whether it's time for us to rethink our position.
Wouldn't it be nice if we were independent again, Nigel? Wouldn't it be nice?
Well,
if people actually listened to what we wanted, even that would be nice.
Well, yes, I mean that's a separate subject. But the Prime Minister overnight has told us we must trust her, but she may need our help. So you may get a chance to vote on that again. So Vanessa, you wouldn't call yourself a Trump fan, but he's doing okay, yeah?
I'm open, and he's changed my mind, or the Iranian people that have phoned in have changed.
Yeah, okay, that's very, very interesting. No, very interesting. Vanessa, thank you for that. Yep, no. Lots of Iranians ringing in saying he has done the right thing. Messages galore. You saw something in Trump from day one that others didn't, Nigel. What was it? Asked Jackie in Watford. What I saw was somebody who was rough and tough, unafraid to cause offence, and who wanted to bring about genuine change. And, you know, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. Sometimes you need people in life who are going to say it as it is, and who are not scared of criticism. And I saw that in Trump. What I also saw in Trump were that his instincts on the big stuff were right. He understood that artificial, false, supranational governments like the European Union were simply not what ordinary people wanted. They want to live in countries. They like flags. They want their own football teams. He got that stuff. I think he also understood when he saw what was happening in Brussels and Paris and other European cities. He genuinely did not want America to become like that, and he wanted a tough immigration policy to try and prevent it. So for all of those things, I thought Trump was the right person. What I wasn't sure about was exactly how he would handle foreign affairs. But from the moment he flew to Riyadh for his first ever foreign trip, I think he has exceeded all expectations. I think he's right, absolutely right, about Iran. I wish he'd helped broker a deal between Dublin and London on the Irish border. Now, that really would be something, wouldn't it? Perhaps we should ask him when he comes over here on the 12th of July. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'm back tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. At 3 this afternoon, it's Ian Payne. But up next is Majid Nawaz.
Thank you, Nigel. And if you're interested in Trump, stay tuned. We will be coming to that subject as well later on. But coming up, the government is considering scrapping gay people's rights to civil partnerships rather than extending